Hi everyone, and welcome to week 5 of 3D design. I'm going to go ahead and take you through the content for the week. So this week we are diving into a 2-week project, which I'm going to go ahead and go over with you. If you go to the module, you'll see it's on rhythm in proportion to unity. So you can go through the introduction. There's a couple of things we're going over as far as the lecture material. The reading is there. And then there's a 3-part technique on using coiling. So we'll be dealing with clay for the next 2 weeks. You're going to want to make sure you do the reading and also watch all the lecture material before you dive into this project, because if you've never dealt with this type of clay, you're using a specific technique that's going to help you build upon your form, that's going to help you along the way to really block it out the way it's supposed to be done. Okay, the assignment is there, and then the wrap up. So again, the assignment is a 2-part project, so I'm going to go ahead and go over that with you. So for this week, you're going to be required to just complete part 1. Now you can go over the spec sheet that's under the module, but I'm just going to be reading some of the stuff here because, tailor it to whatever you need. So a major component of this project is adding faceted planes to your finished piece for the week 2 submission, or the part 2 submission. This first week, you're going to be giving me, your basic shape as much as you can have done masked out in clay. Okay, so a note of emphasis, because this does happen. Students from previous sections have submitted the same finished work for both part 1 and part 2 of the projects. I don't accept duplicate submissions for the same part 1 and part 2. That means if you finish it part 1, most likely you're not going to be done with it. You're going to have a lot of changes to it for part 2. So be sure there's a sufficient amount of variation between your submissions, as it's not a 1-week project. Like, the time should be spent on it. The best way to do this is by adding the faceted planes to the second part of the submission, which I'm going to go over. Okay, scale is the utmost importance as well. You want to make sure it's large enough that you can really take your time and make the cuts that you need. It doesn't have to be like the size of a room, but you want to make sure you're at least working about the size of a cantaloupe, depending on what you're doing. Okay, so you're going to go through your spec sheet, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to pick something that you want to make a sculpture out of. So find a reference image. So these are a couple of the student examples that are for part 2 of the assignment. So this is what to expect from the piece. So the best thing to kind of do is, for the first portion, obviously do your sketches, and then do the first portion of it, which would be like if you were doing this bunny, they submitted the first round and it was mostly rounded out. The second round is when you're making it with the little facets that is spoken about. So really the best way to understand what that is in sculpture is picture no round edges. So you can see the bunny is more geometric, like a gemstone, versus just like rounded out, like you just made it out of clay and just left it. So if you look at this one, you can see, like, instead of just the eyes being round, they chunked it up. You can see instead of a regular arch on the back, they used different tools to make it look like, again, picture a gemstone versus a ball. And you can see how they chose to make it faceted looking, more geometric. So you can see this one was also bunnies, so they did a series. You don't have to do 2, but it was kind of like a work in progress for them. And then I also gave you a link to one of the better videos that I had on it, this is to the final project, so it shows like the elephant in the stages of sketches and then kind of where they ended up at the end. And again, it really shows all the facets and how it's made and the process that the student used. So very helpful as you're diving into this progress. All right, thank you so much and have a great week.